Okay, the next step is let's reference an image into Rhino. So this is going to be the first time everybody's going to bring an image in, and we're going to learn how to scale an image. This may seem complex. I'll go as slow as possible and make sure everybody can follow along. Now, the surfaces are getting in our way, right? If we put an image on here, the surfaces are going to block it because they are not solid, but they cover. They're not clear. They're not transparent like curves are. So let's hide our surfaces for now. And the reason why I couldn't is because that's where my current layer is selected. So before you hide it, if you have an issue, let's create a new layer and let's call it image. This will be outside of your surface and your curves. This will be its own separate layer. So don't sub-layer it at all. And let's make that the selected layer. So you should have images as your selected layer, and then now you should be able to turn off your surfaces. Now let's let everybody go into top view. And this is what you should get. Okay. So in order to bring an image into Rhino, the command is called picture frame. So picture, even when you just type in PI, it's your first option. Everybody take note of that one, picture frame. So when you hit enter, it's going to ask you, it's going to bring up a dialog box, and it's going to want to know where that image is, right? And so let's everybody go to where they saved it. So for me, it's under my server or drive name, and under here, and there it is. It's called sitemap photograph cropped. So I'm going to click it, and I'm going to click open. I'm going to do the process over again just so everybody can follow along here. So you're going to type picture frame. You're going to go to the image, your version of the image. You're going to select it and hit open. And now what is it asking? First corner of picture frame. Now for now, since we're not going to be able to scale it perfectly first try, we're going to have to do that after the fact. Let's just click on a point and let's open it. Let's say, the image was roughly the size of what the information we had here. And so let's click. So now we brought an image into Rhino. Now the problem is it's not the same size as our drawing, right? It's random. Basically is the size you made it when you brought it in. So what we're going to need to do here is we're going to need to scale it to the right size. So let's kind of zoom into this corner here. This is where we're going to focus in. Now you can easily turn on and off the image, right, through the layers. If it gets in your way, you can turn it on and off. Right? So let's select it. Now let's choose a point right, let's see what's a good spot for it.
How do you rotate the image? Because it didn't come out as straight as yours.
Okay, that's a good question. So I'm going to delete this and I'll bring it back in again. So sometimes there's an issue where when you do picture frame, you open it up and you select your first point and you're doing this, and you see how mine is staying steady? Some people's might be doing this, right? Going crazy everywhere. So there's a down in the bottom next to grid snap, there's the word ortho. Make sure your ortho is on, and that's going to straighten it out for you, and it's going to allow you to do straight instead of it going in any direction. So you see how now that I have the ortho on down here?
Yeah.
So I'm going to replace it on there. So hopefully everybody has it perfectly placed on there straight like this. And now so our next step is to locate a similar point. So I happen to know, because I've looked at this map before, where things are located. Can everybody hide the image really quickly. And let's zoom in right here. So this is an intersection right here. This is where a bunch of streets come together. And that's where we're going to use to get this image in the proper location. So if you turn the image back on, and on this portion of the image right here, all the way on the left, you'll see there's that street intersection. And if you look at the drawing here, you'll see that the intersection's over here. So what I need to do is I need to move it, right? So I'm going to select the image, it's highlighted, and I'm going to type the word M-O-V-E, move, and hit enter. So now it's asking point to move from. So we need to choose the exact spot where we're going to use to move this image. Everybody on this image should have this line right here. Does everybody see that line? Does anybody have their grid snap on? Go ahead and turn it off for now. So let's select this corner right here. Does everybody see that blurry edge right there? So I'm going to pick that point, just pick once, and then see how the image follows suit. Now you notice how it's going up and side only, and that's because we have the ortho on, right? So let's go down to the bottom and let's click the ortho, back off. So now you should be able to move your picture freely. Now if you left click, don't do it, but if you left click, it's going to put the image wherever your pointer is. If you need to move around, and you can still pan by right clicking. If you right click, you can pan and move around while still not placing your image. So maybe you need to get into spot here, and you can also still zoom in and out with the scroll wheel. Now if everybody, this corner right here, I'm going to have everybody take this point, and you're going to click this point right there. Got that? So everybody should be able to do that fairly easily. So I'm just going to go and move it, and I'm going to zoom in so I don't miss it. And oh, it's not selecting it. What's the problem here? The issue is we need our object snaps on. So down in that same toolbar down there, let's click O snap. Now does everybody get a little bit of more information on their screen down here? Let's click endpoint. Does everybody have endpoint selected? So now when we go over this, it's going to snap to that right there because it's considered an endpoint. So what I'm going to do is click, and there it is. Now it's on that point. And I did a pretty good job bringing the image in, right? It's almost the same size. You see how it's slightly off from our blue line, our parcel? So it's slightly off, right? But it's pretty close. So I'm going to pause the video and make sure everybody has this far, and then from here I'm going to correct this error. I'm going to make it the right scale because it's slightly off. You can see it gets even more off the further you get away from this point here. If you go all the way on the other side, you can see it's trying to be on, but it's slightly off. Okay, so let's scale the image so that way it fits proportionally better. So select the image, type the word scale, and let's maybe go across the street here, and let's select a point, and let's select across the parcel another point here, right? And let's click that point, and let's drag it to the new point where we want it to be, right? So now we've gotten a little bit closer. And if you go in the long scope of things, you see it's still off over here, right? So pretty much what we're going to have to do is keep adjusting it until we can get it correct. Takes a little bit of finessing. It's not a science. It's more of just like a scale and then check to see the overall, and then scale and check to see the overall. So I'm going to go ahead and get this in place, and then I'll show you the result. Okay, now that we've scaled our map to as close as possible to the approximate map, It might be slightly off in some areas, and you're welcome to keep adjusting it after the fact if you'd like. Now that we have this, now we can see our buildings. And so what's next to do is let's start creating some building masses. And so first things we need to do is create a new layer, right? So we need to go building mass, and then we're going to call it curve, because that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to select that layer, and let's make it dark gray. So now that we have that, we can start to make some lines on this, and we can start to outline some of these buildings. One thing I suggest for everybody to turn on is planar. It's next to object snap and ortho. What that's going to do is it's going to allow all your lines to be on the 0, 0 plane. So that way when you're clicking around, you don't end up way down somewhere, way up somewhere, and you think you're drawing flat, but when you go into perspective and you look, your lines might be everywhere. This is going to stop that from happening. This is going to allow you to just draw on one flat plane. And that is the planar button here. It's all the way at the bottom.
That's the only function of that tab?
I believe so. That's the best way I know how to turn it on and off.
You can also use project.
Project works too. That's the other way. If you want to turn on this project right here. So let's draw a line. So has anybody, we haven't drawn lines yet, right? So let's kind of go off to the side here and let's do a little tutorial on lines. So you can type the word line and it'll draw one single line for you. You can also find it right here. If you open this guy up right here, it's going to give you all your lines. So we got line, which is the same thing as typing line, and it gives you one line. Next to it, if you left click, it's polyline. Polylines allow you to do a series of lines in which you can close. And once you close it, it becomes a closed surface, much like what we were already using. There's a lot of other options here. These are going to be your main two. The one I'm going to ask everybody to use is Polyline. So that way we can create closed curves. So that way we can turn them into planar surfaces. For instance, I drew this right here, this shape. Now if I type planar surface, it creates a surface for me because it's a closed line. You can't necessarily do that so easy with individual lines. You'd have to hit spacebar every time, and then you finally would get it, and then you could do a planar surface. But it's much easier if you use a polyline to get that shape. And so this is how we're going to create our buildings here. So maybe that's the shape of our building. Then we'd click it and we'd do planar surface, and then we'd want to transfer this onto the surface. We'd want to create a new layer, building mass, surfaces, and we would want to apply that to that layer. So I'm going to delete all this. This is just for reference. And I'm going to go over here and let's draw this first shape right here. So I'm going to use a polyline. I'm going to start typing it, P-O-L-Y, and it's already the first option, polyline. I'm going to hit enter. So it asks me where do I want to start this polyline. And the best place to start, first off, we need is to make sure that our object snaps are on. So does everybody have their object snaps on? That's the only way you're going to click to your line work. So the first thing everybody should click near. Let's turn near on. So that's going to allow you to click a point near, like this, for instance. It's lighting it up. So I'm going to click. Everybody should zoom into this building right here because this will be the easiest example if we all do it together. So I'm going to click that point, and I'm going to bring down this way. And I'm going to say that this is the building outline here. So I'm going to click right here, and then I want to click over here, right? Let's everybody turn on perp. It stands for perpendicular. And you see how it snaps to perpendicular? So that's allowing me to create a perpendicular line. And so now that I have those two lines drawn, I don't need the image anymore, right? Because now the rest of the information is here, given to me. So I'm going to overlap the same lines again and close it. So now I've created a line, a polyline, that's a closed curve, and that's essentially our first building mass, right? Right now all it is a curve. So if I go into, I can easily turn this into a surface, right? But the first thing we need to do is we need to create a surface layer for it. So building, mass, surfaces. I'm going to make it dark gray as well. I'm going to change my layer to that layer already. The reason why I'm going to do that is because when I hit planar surface, the planar surface, that surface that it creates, ends up on the layer that you have as your current. So if you already put it on the surface layer and then you do the command, that surface will come out on that layer. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. I will show you right here. So I'm going to do planar surface. My current layer is building mass surface right here. And I'm doing planar surface with this curve. And I hit enter. So since this is my layer, this plane that was created was automatically applied to this layer. See that? So that's the best way to do that kind of stuff. So now that we have this one, now we can move on and let's turn our image back on again. And we have another building right here, right? And let's just say, for simplicity's sake, that this is all one building right here. This whole thing is one big L shape. So let's go back to our building mass curves layer and select that one. And let's do another polyline. So you can either type polyline, or if you have this open here, you can click polyline. And let's go to right about where it is. And the near is going to help us out, right? It's going to use that existing line that we already drew. And so what I want to do here, and let's just draw in top view. It'll just be easier because you're doing 2D drawing. So now we can select this point right here, because that's the outline profile of the building. And then perpendicular is going to snap us there. Now we have the curves to help us out, right? Because this building happens to be right on this profile. So I'm just going to copy around, or click the points. And I'm not really sure where the building ends, right? So I need to turn the image back on. And it looks like the building is going to end somewhere right here. And then I'm going to click at the profile that we already had here. And I've basically made it all the way around, right? Now the last step is to click at the point I started, and that'll end the command, and I've created another closed line. So then, now that I have that accomplished, I want to create another surface, right? So I'm going to double click the surface layer, and I'm going to select this plane, or this curve, and I'm going to create a plane from it. So I'm going to do planar surface again, and hit enter, and it created it for me. So now I'm starting to go through and I'm starting to build my buildings, right? And as you can see by how much we have here, there's a lot of buildings to build. You can see that it's really easy to do this. All you got to do is use a poly surface, trace the building, use other lines that you have done already for reference, so that way they overlap each other. That's your best bet. And then once you close your polyline, you can do planar surface and you'll get your surfaces.